Yeah. Myself to go. I used to have a bat. Yeah. And I noticed that siding on there, which was, a little bit, so I'm not very. Oh, yeah. I'll try the decoration. We were busy about October.
Already booked.
Yeah. Under the heat.
Right.
These are flying past the years, but you guys are.
Yeah, so there was, I think that might have been like around because they were still trying to figure out what to do with COVID. Last year I was back in them, we came back to do it the first time, and I saw usually.
Yeah, we were in the building.
Yeah, yeah, that, they couldn't do for some reason. So, oh, okay, whatever was supposed to be on.
So then they were.
Where's our, which is great, I was glad to see that. So. It is. It is fancy. Yeah. What I'm thinking. Yeah, we have years and I often said, are you no, she's still just for that, so yeah. And both of them have it's a balance. Let's take pictures or. We do that, and we watch the photo. We have to. I see them now.
I have.
Okay, was all over the north. Eventually, when we got so excited, was one of the. Nice to meet you. Yes.
Somewhere along the way, yes.
So yeah, she was excited. And you know,
Instead of 2.5 years.
Right.
Since it's table. So.
Later. No, I don't think so. Okay, we'll sit down and see. Yeah. Let's see pictures.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're just sitting down.
Yeah. It's like. He was.
Sure.
But they was.
That's so. I just got back to myself.
Picture of people that were out. Yes, the first. Like you explain. Oh, I know, we are sharpening, we should twice the words of that. Still recovering for that one. And that was the end of May, but not so. Not been booked. Thank you so much.
Right, we're set to do the Zoom and record it. Right, okay, great. We're a few minutes early. I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Lots of new faces tonight. We're glad to have you with us. And we're going to let Ralph and Jean introduce our speaker when the time comes. Just a minute. We just wanted to tell you that we have our annual meeting and ice cream social on June 7th. Welcome. Hi. How are you? We're going to be right outside here in the park. And we hope that everyone will come and join us for ice cream in the afternoon on a hot, warm June day. We'll be 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda. We'll be introducing our scholarship recipients who will tell us about their plans. And we'll tell you more about our big project in Twain Harte, which is Bird Town. Hi, welcome. Hello. And enjoying one another's company, recognizing our volunteers and thanking them. So we'll be happy to have you all with us. Okay, and Andy, you wanted to talk about something, and let's do it after our presenter.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right.
Gotta wait a couple more minutes. People are still percolating over here.
Empty.
Yeah, coast is clear
It's
now.
all you.
Hi, welcome to Northern California Bats. And this is presented by Corky Quirk. She's the founder of Norcal Bats. And Corky is the founder, has been working intensely with native bats since 2004. She is permitted through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the USDA. She's an experienced environmental educator who got her start, Campfire Boys and Girls. She has an undergraduate degree in natural resource planning and interpretation from Humboldt State University. Corky teaches 3 days a week at Yolo Basin Foundation, a wetland education program in the Sacramento Valley. So, welcome, Corky.
Thank
Where are you? There you are.
I'm hiding behind you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I go by Corky and I do wildlife rescue. So sometimes people find a hurt wild animal, maybe they want to get help for it, and if it's a bat, it would come to a person like me, and we would try to help it to recover and return to the wild. Sometimes though, I have a healthy bat with an injury that I cannot repair. And those are the bats that stay with me and help me to share. So with me today, I have 3 of our local native species. I have 2 big brown bats, 2 free-tailed bats. Try to get over for the camera for the folks at home. And 2 pallid bats. These bats are real, they're alive. They are full-grown adult bats, and they eat insects because that's what bats in the United States do. Our bats eat bugs. We have no fruit bats or vampire bats. You're gonna hear me say that kind of stuff probably more than you want. I do want to take out one of the big brown bats so that I could introduce her to you a little bit. And what's up?
Your screen is, it just says, Corky, the camera's not feeding through.
Camera's not feeding?
Yeah, maybe might you turn your camera on. Turn that light off.
That's not the problem. Let's see.
It was on earlier.
I had it on. That's not the problem. I don't want the light down yet, but I'm gonna stop the share so I can see the controllers better. Now I got all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I've got all kinds of weird stuff going on here now. Okay, there's the video, except it's the wrong video. There, now we're back. Okay. Now I'm gonna take out the big brown bat. I don't do Zoom in the room very often. Now where you have people at home and people,
It's more challenging.
yeah, it is a little more challenging. I do Zoom and I do in the room, but I don't normally do them together very often, so
Is it okay to have the door open?
it's fine.
Okay.
So these bats don't fly due to injury, which is why they stay with me. And help me to share. The big brown bat. Now, I like to start with her here because this is a bat that we frequently see in more forested areas. All three of these species are local, but the big brown bat is pretty common around the trees. So I'm gonna just sort of buzz by so people can kind of, oh, wait, home. You see her? Alright. So, big brown bat is a large species for the United States, and I know she doesn't look very big. She is brown and black in color, and color is camouflage. So you can imagine how well she would hide if she would say under the bark of a tree, or maybe where a branch is broken off. They also frequently go in things people build. So we'll see them in barns, bridges, under the eaves of houses, and places like that.
In the walls.
Yeah, sometimes in the walls. The free tails are more likely to be in your walls, sorry. And if you're having bat issues that way, yeah, the Mexican free tails, they're lovely little bats, but they take over. Big brown bats, there maybe you'll have 20 living together. Free-tailed bats, maybe you'll have 20,000. Okay, maybe, but you get the point, right? The big brown bat's favorite insect in the wild is a beetle, although they eat a variety of insects. So they'll eat beetles like cucumber beetles and bark beetles. They also will eat moth, they'll eat flying termites. I lost my camera again. What is that about? Did you turn it off?
No, so people are asking to be admitted, I admit them, and then it became a goes back, so I'm not sure.
That is just really weird. I have never seen that happen before. Zoom, right? Right, yeah, they remind me a little of a bear. Yep.
When I was a lot younger, I used to do a lot of spelunking for
Uh-huh.
this county and Calaveras County. And of course, bats weren't everywhere in all caves, but most caves would have a few and some had considerably more. But what type of bats would those most likely be?
Depends on where you were. There's, well,
So-
we'll talk more about that kind
So
of stuff.
all these bats are capable of living in caves?
No,
No?
not all of them are in caves.
All right.
And we'll go through some of that in a while. I want to show you her wing. It is not her favorite. Right, so she has a big broad wing. Up. In time to get to the people at home. My camera's still on?
Yes.
Okay. Nice big broad wing. And then when I let go, she just puts it right back away. We can put her back in here with her friend. She would be about the size of this toy if she was out flying. So she'd look a lot bigger in flight. Alright, she's gonna climb to the top with her thumbs. She's gonna turn over and hang by her feet. Usually they cuddle, sometimes they talk about it. And unlike birds, she'll just go right on in. So they're not near as easily spooked as a bird. Bats are pretty tolerant. They're mammals, I think because of that. Maybe they have a different kind of understanding. Yep. Now, again, everybody here has a problem. The majority of these bats were caught by house cats. So just like our birds, some of our mammals and reptiles have problems with house cats that are allowed to run out. Okay, what do I do with my clicker? Let's see if it works.
We lost the camera. It just seems.
I lost the camera again.
It's okay. The slideshows. Oh, the important thing.
The slideshow's showing okay though. Is that what you're saying?
Not right now.
You don't have the slideshow? I have the slideshow. Why don't you have the slideshow?
You can also just enable the camera. Show the big screen. Oh, now it's on. Thank you. Camera and slideshow.
All right, so there. We saw the bats, there's, okay, so what do you think? Oh, we were gonna hit the lights for the slideshow. Related to the rodents? No. What about us? Related to the rodents? We're mammals. But past being a mammal, I don't really think of myself as very close to a mouse, and neither are the bats. So if we look at how some of the mammals are related to each other, and we follow the trunk of the tree and kind of go over to the left, you can find the bat. If you go up that trunk, you have to take a right-hand turn to get over to the rodents where the rats are. Interestingly to me, if you stay on that branch and you go farther, you find us. Which means by DNA, we are closer to the rats than the bats are to the rats. Bats are more closely related to things like hoofed animals and the carnivores. I like to call them itty bitty flying kitties. Some people call them sky puppies. I'm okay with that. Now, bats are mammals, not birds. Birds have hollow bones. Bats don't. They have marrow in their bones like us, which means they have to have another method of being light enough to fly. And that ends up being tied in with why do they hang upside down? Because they've given up their thigh muscles. So they don't jump well from the ground. Birds have nice strong thigh muscles and they can jump, but bats not so much. Their wing is their hand. So if we compare that structure to us, it's again quite different from a bird. The digits match our arm and our hand. And all mammals that fly are called bats. They have an arm with an elbow and a wrist, thumb, and elongated fingers. Right? So again, like us, right? Yeah, there it is. And when they fly, it's more like swimming the butterfly stroke. So as we watch this, I know what I didn't do when I turned on the Zoom, I forgot the sound. This doesn't have sound, but we're gonna go back down and back up in a sec. So watch this bat. Watch how it moves its arms. It can bend the knuckles on its fingers, changing the shape of the wing. It has all that skin from the pinky to the ankle. Now, this is a type of a flying fox or a fruit-eating bat from the continent of Africa. All right. We are going to stop the share. And then we're going to reshare with sound. Yeah, let's see if it works. All right. Bats are not blind. They have eyes. They see with their eyes. So no more blind as a bat. Some bats see quite well. Most bats are hunting at night, so sonar becomes important for that. The fruit bats are the outliers. Fruit bats see in full color. They see into the ultraviolet, much like some of the birds that eat fruit, so that they can tell the ripeness. But most bats are seeing black, white, gray, maybe a little green, not all the colors like us. And hunting at night, their sonar or echolocation becomes incredibly important. Echolocation are pulses of sound. Bing, bing, bing. And when that sound returns, they know something is close. And then they go faster. Bing, 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 bing. And then they go super fast. Bing, 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 brrr. And that last little brrr part, that's when they decide if they want to eat it or not. So we're going to listen to this little California myotis. It is, everything's fast. But you might notice the middle is the fastest. Or not. And then it drops back to the search. But we can't hear those sounds. They're too high for people's ears. And that's a little weird to think about, that there are high frequency sounds that we cannot hear. So I have this little app on my phone. It plays high frequency sound. I don't know if the people at home will be able to pick it up or not on my mic, but maybe. I'm going to play a tone. It's going to sound like, when you can hear it, I want you to raise your hand. When the sound stops, I want you to drop your hand right back down. All right. Most people, not all, most people can hear 5 kilohertz. We've lost about half the room. That was 10. And at 10, we begin to lose some of our adults. Sorry, it has tied to gray hair and everything, right? And if you look around, whose hand is still up, right? We got 3. That was 15. And at 15, pretty much anybody over the age of 40 is out. There are some outliers, but kids, teens, younger adults still hear 15 kilohertz. No? You're thinking about it. I can see you thinking.
No, it's not thinking, it's just like I can kind of feel it's there, but it's way too high for.
Yeah. So you're on the edge. That's 17. And at 17 kilohertz, it starts to get iffy for the young adults and teens. If we had children in the room, their hands would all be up. And then right around 19 kilohertz, we lose our like 4th graders and up. And then 20 is considered above the human hearing range. Bats echolocate higher than that. They chit chat in our hearing range. So we hear their conversations, but their echolocation is too high. So I have this little machine. All it is a frequency changer. It picks up super high sounds, makes them low, bringing them into our hearing range. So playing in the background on my phone now is 22. When I turn on my bat detector, 22 becomes 2.2, and we can hear it. And that's how we hear the bats. These guys here, they echolocate right around 30 kilohertz. Humans do not hear 30 kilohertz, but dogs and cats often do. So if you're outside with your pet sometime and suddenly they look up, they might be hearing bat echolocation. This little one, California bat, they echolocate around 50. Dogs don't hear that. Some cats do. But even at that, it starts to get iffy for the cats. Yeah. And there's others that are even higher. And a lot of that has to do with where they're hunting and how far they want that sound to go versus how many details. Right? In our next little video, you're going to see a bat come in, a moth come up. I want you to decide if the bat catches the moth or if the moth goes into the tree. What do you think?
Tree, it goes to the tree.
It went in the tree. What I don't know is if the bat missed or changed its mind. I think it changed its
I
mind.
do too.
Yeah, and what I do know is not only can that bat tell if it is a leaf or a moth, it can tell what kind of moth it is.
Oh.
And some of them don't taste good. Let's see what the next one does. Ready for the sound? Did you hear the feeding buzz? One more time. All right, right over water. A lot of bats hunt over water.
Is that because there's bugs flying over the water?
It's twofold. One, yes, because a lot of insects are around water. Second, many of our bats also drink.
Oh.
Mhm. Now, worldwide, there's almost 1,500 different kinds of bat, different species. And that's pretty impressive when you consider how many kinds of mammals there are in the world. So there's around 6,500 different types of mammals on the planet. Apparently, it's a really good adaptation to have your two front teeth grow all your life, because that's the rodents, and there's a lot of different kinds of rodents. But the next big group are the mammals that can fly, with 1,482 currently named species. In the United States, we have 47 species, 26 in California, and 17 in the northern part of the state. That's on every continent except Antarctica. Too cold there. There's no bugs, right? Yeah. But everywhere else, if there are insects, there are bats eating those insects all over the world. And then when you get into the tropical areas, so rainforest, jungle, those kind of places, that's where you're going to start to pick up still some eating insects, but others that eat fruit, or others that take nectar and pollinate flowers, some that go hunting for meat, and the vampire bats of Central and South America. But here, they eat the bugs. They eat the insects that generally are a problem for us, and a few other invertebrates. And here's one way they can catch a moth. Watch the hand. This one doesn't have sound. You can see the hand wing and then the tail membrane. Oops. That's, yes, he dropped it, but wasn't that impressive flying? Yeah, that was a full bat flip. And this is a bat from Europe that eats spiders.
Wow.
Yeah, look, it flies backwards too, huh? There's no sound. I think we're done with sound. So those first two videos and this photo were taken at the University of Colorado, where they study bats and insects. This is a smashed tiger moth on the end of a string. And what I like about the picture is how well you can see the tail. Often people don't realize bats have tails. Fruit bats are like us, they just have the remnant. But the rest of the bats, if they're hunting, they have tails, right? And then all that skin becomes a catcher's mitt. Now, these little Mexican free-tail bats, which we were kind of teasing about earlier, about them living in your walls, they are absolutely the farmer's best friend. Mexican free-tail bats eat a tremendous amount of crop pests, reducing insecticide use and crop loss. In the summer, they often are targeting moth, and moth caterpillars eat pretty much everything I like. So that moth, its caterpillar eats corn. And there's other moth whose caterpillars eat tomatoes or apples or other fruits. There's some that eat rice and some that eat nuts. On the other hand, if you go to farmer's market and you buy some corn and you go home and you find a caterpillar or larva in there, what's it tell you the farmer didn't use? Insecticides, right. And insecticides are chemical poison. They're not good for us either. If the farmer can use less or none, that means that food is healthier for us and the environment it's being grown in is healthier. So the water is better, the soil is better, and your birds are happier. All right, we're going to fly through a few of our species. California myotis, we heard the tick, 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 tick. It is a western bat, right? All the way up into Canada, all the way down into Central America. And little brown bat, and northern species, it is certainly in our area as well. Little brown bat and the California bat both are tiny. These guys are not much bigger than the end of my thumb, with maybe a 6-7 inch wingspan. Little bats, little bugs. So these are your mosquito eaters, right? Mosquitoes, gnats, midge, all those small bothersome insects. Big brown bat, we met the big brown bat at the very beginning. It is a true North American species. It is in Canada, the United States, and Central America. Big brown bats, again, they like wood. But if they're living in that broad a range, there's many different habitats there. They're pretty flexible, right? They'll go in caves if there's caves. If there's not, they'll go in trees. They'll go in buildings. Yeah, they're pretty good. Pallid bat, again, a western bat. Pallid bat is big, blonde, and hunts on the ground. Very different from many of our other species, and it is our state symbol, the California state bat, the pallid bat. Yep. Golden bat for the Golden State. Mexican free-tailed bat. It is much of the southern part of the United States and in through Central America. These guys live in huge colonies. This is Bracken Cave outside of San Antonio in Texas, with the largest colony. Be grateful it's not in your house. The largest colony of any single mammal species in the world, with an estimated 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats. This is a roofing tile. Yeah, they love heat. Imagine living in a roofing tile in Sacramento in the summer. They do it. Now they're called Mexican, but in reality, they live in many different areas, many different countries. And the ones in California, we actually don't think they migrate out of the state. We think the ones that live in California do an east-west migration rather than the north-south that some of the ones that are in, say, Arizona and New Mexico are doing. This is where I hang out. I live in Davis. This is the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area, which is between Davis and West Sacramento. And so if you're driving Highway 80, maybe heading towards the Bay Area, you may drive right across that bridge, the Yolo Causeway. Living underneath that bridge, up in those crevices, are the little Mexican free-tailed bats. Yeah, there's about 250,000 in that one bridge. Oh. And in the evening, they come out, of course, to hunt. We have a few other species. Canyon bat is the smallest bat in the United States. If you thought the California bat and the little brown bat were little, you should see these guys. Everybody thinks they're babies because they're so darn tiny. The Townsend's big-eared bat has a whole different attitude about humans than the Mexican free-tailed bat. So the Mexican free-tailed bat, it's like, oh, look, the humans, they moved in, they built houses. Let's move in. And they do. Townsend's big-eared bat, humans. Let's have heart attacks and die. And they do. So they're not doing well because they just don't tolerate us. And there's a lot of us. So if you go to places like Pinnacles National Monument and you're like, why do they keep closing the caves? It's to protect this particular species. Biggest and smallest in the United States, biggest bat is the Mastiff bat. Mastiff bat is a free-tailed bat. So when I show you the Mexican free-tail, he looks a lot like the Mexican free-tail. But these girls here, they weigh around 10 grams, maybe 11 grams each. At the time of that photo, he was 80. Yeah, the Mexican freetails have about a 1 foot wingspan, he has about a 2 foot wingspan, much bigger bat. We happen to have both, the biggest and smallest in rescue a couple of years ago, so we were able to get the photo. And this is a canyon bat, and she is about the size of his head. Mhm. First, one of my personal favorites, the Western red bat, maybe because it matches my hair. Yeah, they are quite different in that they don't hide. So we think of bats as hiding under bark or in crevices or in hollows or whatever. These guys hang like a peach or a dead leaf in a tree. This is an oak tree, obviously. This bat had been in rescue and it was getting released. So we had got the picture right before sunset. And it's not uncommon for them to hang by 1 foot and kind of drop a wing. And they just disappear in the tree. You don't even see it. I had a farmer one time tell me he almost picked it. He thought it was a peach. He was, picking his fruit.
What's its territory?
The Western red bats they're riparian. So they're gonna be along the creeks and the rivers and streams. But they will adapt into some human areas if we have decent trees.
Trees.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah. Now the hoary bat, like the red bat, also is a solitary tree species. These guys like the evergreens. So we tend to see them in the forest, but again, sometimes we'll see them in the cities, depending on the kind of trees. They hang out by themselves. They like to go very high up in the tree. While they're hanging out there sleeping, sometimes a scrub jay or other bird comes along, knocks them out of the tree, and they fall on the ground. And then I get the phone call. There's this bat, it's kind of big, it's on the ground, it's laying on its back, and it hissed at me. That is a perfectly healthy bat. In fact, when I get I always ask people to send me pictures, when they have a bat, because I get a picture like that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's normal. I bet it's right under your redwood tree, isn't it? Oh yeah, how'd you know? The only problem for the bat, it can fly from the ground. It can flip itself over once the predator goes away. But house cats come and get them, right? So when I get this kind of call, I tell people just get a broom or a really long stick, flip it over. It'll encourage the bat to fly sooner, because that just keeps them safe from non-native predators. Now, I want to show you how much these little guys eat. So Mexican free-tail bats are absolutely the farmer's best friend. This is mom and her baby. The baby is the pink at the bottom. And in the summer, when mom is nursing, she's going to eat the equivalent of her own weight nightly. So that's going to be around 10 grams of insects. Moths don't weigh very much, so that means that one bat in one night is eating somewhere between 50 and 100 moths. If she's eating mosquitoes, she's eating even more. And that species does eat a variety of types of insects. But of course, not all the moths are going to lay eggs, right? So let's say 20. 20 of the moths are going to lay eggs. Each moth can lay around 500 eggs. So that means that one bat in one night is saving the farmer from about 10,000 moth eggs every night, and she doesn't live alone. So I chose 20 because if the farmer finds 20 moth in the crop, that often is the breaking point for the insecticide decision. Not only are insecticides unhealthy for us, they're also very expensive for farming. Right now, they're costing farmers $70 to $100 an acre if they have to fly them on to spray, right? So remember the bridge, Yola Bypass Wildlife Area, right there, there's a farmer, he grows 2,000 acres of rice. If he had to spray those fields with insecticides, that would cost him around $200,000 annually. But he doesn't. He says, yeah, there's bugs out there, but not enough to cause him problem. And the main pest for rice is an insect called the army worm. The adult stage of the army worm is a moth. Plant your rice next to 250,000 bats. You won't have problems with moth, right? Yeah. So mama and baby, why is mom so hungry? Well, when she gives birth to that one baby, and she only has one at a time, that baby's a third of her weight at birth. It's like us giving birth to kindergartners, right? Yeah. And then in about 5 to 6 weeks, that young bat is as big as her. And now it's time for that bat to learn to fly and hunt. She nurses it and then she weans it. So they get a couple weeks in there. But if they don't build up the fat to make it through the winter, they won't survive. It is very hard to be a young wild animal. But if they do, if they live through that first year, through that winter, they might live 15 or 20 years. Some of our smaller bats, the little brown bats and those guys, they'll live sometimes into their 30s in the wild. Now, they of course have to stay away from the predators and out of other trouble. And yes, that is a problem. But bats and other wildlife drink water. If a bat goes to get a drink of water at a pond and it misjudges and it falls in, it can swim. They swim just like they fly. They'll swim to the side, get itself out. But if it falls in a pool, it can't climb the tiles. So if you have a pool or you have a horse trough or those kinds of things, I encourage people to get a wildlife ramp. This particular one's brand name is Frog Log, which is why there's a frog in the photo. But there's a lot of them out there, or you can make your own. So I do rescue. I'm taking in bats that people find on the ground. And bats don't belong on the ground, right? If you don't touch it, it won't hurt you. If you don't touch it, it will not bite you or attack you. Bats are not aggressive animals. And if you don't handle it, even if it's sick, there's not a disease you'll get by being near it. But if you pick it up, it will be scared and it may bite. And if that animal is sick, that's how disease gets spread. So don't. If you want to get help for it, we do need it contained. We cannot help a bat we can't find. So you can use gloves that are good enough for working with rose thorns. You can use a tool, trap the bat, call Wildlife Rescue. Motherlode here in Tuolumne County, Motherlode Wildlife Rescue does work with bats. So the concern, of course, is rabies. Most bats are not sick with rabies, but they're mammals, so they certainly can be. Worldwide, dogs are the biggest issue for passing rabies on to humans. But in the United States, we vaccinate our pets. So as long as we keep up on that, we have a pretty good handle on canine rabies. So here, we're worried about feral cats with no shots, bats, skunk, and fox as being the most likely to be near people when the animal is sick. And for a bat, it's the bat on the ground that we worry about. Bat on the ground, 1 in 10 may be sick with rabies. That means 90% aren't. But that's not good enough when you're talking a virus that kills mammals, and we're mammals, right? But rabies is passed through saliva. And bats don't spit. So if you don't handle them, you're not exposing yourself. And then if something goes wrong, you're moving your wood pile, you're not wearing gloves because you're just trying to be quick, and you come out and there's a bat attached and then the bat leaves, we have the opportunity in this country for vaccination. We lose 1 to 2 humans per year in the United States to rabies. Some of them contracted the disease in other countries, usually from dogs. The others most often choose not to get the vaccines. So we can prevent this disease. We worry about what wildlife may pass to us, but we need to keep in mind what we pass to them also. And in the case of this disease called white nose syndrome, the bats of the US and Canada are being devastated. It's caused by a fungus. This fungus came from Europe, more likely on the boots of some caver or hiker, or maybe a researcher. It first was identified in a recreational cave in New York State, and each year it's been spreading. When it gets into caves with the little hibernating bats, 50 to 99% die. We are losing our bats by the millions across the United States. They wake up too often during hibernation. They burn up their calories and they starve to death. In the millions. Bats in this part of the US and Canada, the little brown bat and the northern long-eared bat have lost, well, the little brown bat's lost around 90% of its population. It's looking at the endangered species list. The northern long-eared bat, we expect it to go extinct probably in the next 10 years. Those are both bats that were a dime a dozen bat. They were everywhere and now they're gone, right? In the Midwest, there was an interesting research paper that came out last fall. It was actually an economist that did the work. He was following what happens financially when you lose bats. What's their economics, right? And so he was following what the farmers were doing. And as the bats were dying in those counties, the increase in insecticides was 30%. When the increase in insecticides had to go up by 30% due to the bats being gone, we lost family farms that couldn't afford that kind of increase and human health issues. We saw an increase in infant mortality of 8%. And those were not farm workers. They took the farm workers out because they didn't want to skew the research. Bats are important. Insecticides, we're a huge agricultural state, right? We need our bats. If we look at these, where the map in California is kind of interesting. If you look here, many of these counties are solid. Where they're solid, the bats are dying. Where there's circles, the DNA of the fungus is there. But so far we haven't seen bats affected. And we don't know what that means. We don't know if it's just a matter of time. It hasn't been in California very long. Or is it that our climate is different enough? Our bats don't hibernate as long as bats on the East Coast and in the Midwest. So we don't know. Best thing we can do, stay out of caves. Stop spreading it. If we do go into caves, we need to clean our shoes and clothes. Bleach kills it, alcohol kills it. We can do those things and stop spreading non-native things around. I also worry about the decline of the insect population due to habitat loss and insecticide use. We need our bugs, right? Some of them are pollinators, of course, some are decomposers, and some are food for the things that we enjoy. So if you like fish, you like birds, you like reptiles, all of those eat insects, and so do the bats. So some things we can do. Well, bat houses, this is Tuolumne County. This is Laura, who runs Motherlode Wildlife Rescue. And she has this huge bat house up on these poles. This is Woodland, California, where they were doing an experiment trying to figure out what color the bats liked. They didn't care. They occupied either color, but there were some things they cared about. If the bat house was placed on a building, that was the best. If the bat house was on a freestanding pole, the chance of occupancy dropped unless it was a big enough bat house or the two bat houses back to back. That helped. And if they were placed in a tree, they hardly got any bats. And part of that we think is fluctuation of temperature. They like it warm and stable. East facing was best, south was second. Then there's these little weird things that is put at the bottom of some of the bat houses. These are called pup catchers, P-U-P, as in baby bat. Because sometimes bat houses overheat in the summer. And the babies will crawl out to cool off. And sometimes they lose their footing. And if they fall just a little bit, they can just crawl themselves right back in. But if they fall all the way to the ground, think about picking up a kindergartner and flying with it, right? Most adult bats, most species can't carry their pup from the ground. So if the baby falls, that's it. This is a predator guard, and that's an osprey nest.
What was the top?
Osprey nest, that's at Beale Air Force Base. Some other things we can do, planting native plants, encouraging native insect populations, not using insecticides and supporting the farmers who don't. Habitat is important, so we can't, of course, have the dead trees next to our houses, but if we have property and we can leave one here and there farther out, that's beneficial. They do need water, of course. Land trusts and farmers that use hedgerows are also supporting wildlife. Dark sky, again affecting birds and bats both. So we can choose things like motion lights that turn off, so we don't have to light up the night all the time. We need the light when either the bad guy comes by or we're walking to our car and it's dark, right? But it doesn't have to be on all the time. And there are some colors of light that are less impactful to birds and bats, and cats I've talked about. All right, we're gonna meet our bats. And the way we're gonna do that is with my camera here. So I need to take down my share and I need to see if I can get this figured out here, which I should be able to do. Okay, so give me a sec. Okay, why don't we have a camera again? There it is. Okay. Okay.
So the color of lights at night, if you need light on your porch or.
If you need light on, then yeah, the colors do matter. I'm trying to figure out why I'm seeing this and not what I want to be seeing.
On Zoom, but not.
Right. That's not what we want. We want that. That didn't do it. Okay. I can. That's the Mexican free-tailed bat. I turned my camera off again. You know, there are many things I do not understand. It keeps turning my camera off. Why is it doing that? Oops. Thank you for your patience. I don't understand why it keeps turning it off.
Yeah, it's into click on about an answer.
But it's not even that. I mean, it's like going right immediately off. See?
Yeah.
Why? There. Yes. Stay.
Oh.
I don't understand. Anybody smarter than me? I've never seen that. Is it a control on your end? Do you have it set so that people can't
No.
turn on their videos or anything?
Tried. And yeah, I think we have several presenters
Or
or
peop-
guests who have their cameras on the whole evening. So
Of course.
it's,
Okay. Huh. Okay. All right. Stay. Stay. Okay, I'm gonna leave the meeting. Unmute. All right. Okay. Why is it doing that? I have never seen that.
I'll do make hosts.
Huh?
Try making you the host.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's gonna make a difference, but maybe. This is the best part. Right? Seeing the bats? Alright. I'm gonna start with the Mexican free-tailed bat. And I'd like to start with that one because it's an incredibly common species and it's one that often flies around sunset, which means it's flying before it's truly dark. And we see them a lot in our buildings and bridges. And they don't seem to mind us. So, you know, they're in the neighborhood. These guys are around. They're also just a super cool little bat. Okay.
Are they up high at 6,000 feet or not?
Not 6,000. I was so hopeful. You do anything on your end? It just won't hold. It's like, I've never seen this before. No, come on. That was weird too.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Guys, no idea if it'll work. I've never done this before. Okay, this will be interesting. Turn around the other way. Okay, left and right hand. There it is. Okay. So I know how to do it under the other camera. I don't know how to do it with this one. There we go. Okay. Mexican free-tailed bat. So she is about 10 grams. She's considered medium for the bats in our area. So little brown bat, California bat, Canyon bat, they're all here. But they're kind of like Chihuahuas. So super high strung, so they don't do shows very well. Mexican free-tailed bats, they do shows really well because they just sort of chill. All right, I want to share with you some of the adaptations or special things about this bat that help it to fly fast. That didn't work. I was trying to see if I can get the lighting better on the bat. Oh, we lost our pin. All right. So are you able to actually spotlight or just pin?
Right, yeah, now that
Oh, can you switch it back? Because my computer's upside down now. I have no control over anything. Is it? Okay. Well, we'll stick with this. Yeah, so what's happening is anytime somebody talks, it's going to take it away. Which is why Spotlight is nice because Spotlight makes it stay. All right, ears. Right, so I want to start with the ears and then we'll get to the rest of the body parts. The ears are round and they come together and sort of make a V shape right in the center of the forehead. So see how those ears kind of touch right there almost? And then there's little bumps on the edges of the ears. And all of that is aerodynamics. So moving air while flying, a little bit extra for speed. She has short fur. Longer fur would slow her down. Shorter fur, less drag, faster flight. And I'm going to call that fur gray. It's kind of a gray brown. You can see sort of the little wrinkly lips. She has, yeah, her little wrinkly lips are like that so that she can open her mouth extra wide. So much like a swallow would grab an insect with their mouth because they have a big wide mouth. Mexican free-tail bats are fast. They can grab insects straight out of the air with their mouth, in addition to using wings and tail and that kind of stuff. So these are the thumbs. Her thumbs have a nice sharp claw on the end, good for climbing. And then she has her long, narrow wing. Let's see if I can show her wing here. Is her elbow, wrist, thumb, fingers, long and narrow. She says, give me back my wing. Yep. Things with long, narrow wings fly fast. So jet planes, right? Swifts, swallows, peregrine falcon, Mexican free-tail bat. They have a tail that sticks out longer than the tail membrane. So free tail is because the tail is free or longer than that skin. She has that skin. She can stretch it out and use it, or tuck it back down and get it out of the way. So there's no big parachute dragging behind her, slowing her down. She's like, you petted my fur the wrong way. Whiskers on her toes. Whiskers are for feeling. She can feel where she's going when she's backing up in a crack or a crevice. And she can feel subtle changes in the way air moves. Again, an adaptation for speed. So we're going to come back. Oh, she's talking. Yeah, you telling me about it? Says, this is not how we usually do the camera. Teeth. Yeah. Sharp, good for chewing insects. And notice she doesn't have rodent teeth. This is not a mouse with wings. She has carnivore teeth. She has fangs or canines. And they're very sharp. They're much like needles. And there's 32 needles in that mouth. So just like us, right? Yep, chewing up the bugs. Favorite insects are the moth and the mosquito. She'll eat beetles, she'll eat other insects, but her true claim to fame is speed. Mexican free-tail bat is the fastest mammal on Earth, beating the cheetah by a lot. Cheetahs top out around 70. Mexican free-tail bats have been known to fly just under 100 miles an hour. Yeah, beat the cheetah. You had a question?
So this little thought, right?
Right, one wing. Oh, okay. So one wing, some of the bones were broken and we couldn't set them well enough for flight. I teach them to eat mealworms, and first I feed them, hand feed them. And then once they learn about that that's food, because you know it's sort of foreign that it's even food, then I can teach them to eat from a bowl. So I don't have to hand feed her anymore. She gets food in her bowl at home, in her cage with her friends. She lives with all of the other bats that are here, and they just crawl in the bowl, eat what they want.
Do they all live in the same area together?
Even in the wild, they will share. In their case, all 6, I have 22 ambassador bats. These 6 live together. And they frequently travel together. So even though they're different species, they can't interbreed. They're not only different species, they're different genuses and 2 different families. But you know, they often live in similar settings. They like tight spaces and crevices. They like similar temperatures, and yeah, they get along just fine. Yep,
So,
I do. Yeah. But I have more females. And I get more males into rescue, but more females survive.
Oh.
And I don't know if that's skewed by just life, or if it is that way in the wild. Most of these species, they would live during mating season. Most of the year would live in single sex colonies. Except of course during mating season, and then during mating season, they have harems, for the most part, not always, but free tails by big time. Which means there's a lot of bachelors, right? So maybe maybe some of the males we get in are just not as hardy.
Just gonna keep this is on my computer.
Okay.
It's gonna be.
All right, that's all that matters, right? Well, it's fun for you. All right, I'm taking back out the big brown bat. The one I showed you at the beginning. And we're gonna do a little compare. So how this bat is compared to the Mexican free-tailed bat. Okay. So I told you everybody here has a problem. Her problem is quite different in that she was born to a mother who had been injured. And I think maybe the stress of being caught by a cat and then coming into a predator's rescue and going through the medications to deal with it, I think maybe that's why she is blind. So she won't fly. It's too scary, I think. Echolocation is great close up, but sound doesn't travel real far. And so they have to be able to see. They're not fast like the Mexican free-tail, but they're not slow. They'll go maybe 40 miles an hour. And if you're going 40 miles an hour, you better be able to see where you're going, right? Yeah. All right. Much fuzzier, right? Very furry. Broader habitat. So again, these guys are all over North America. So they can live in Minnesota and Canada and Alaska and places that are quite cold. They can live in Arizona and California and Texas and places that aren't cold, right? If they live where it snows, this species is capable of true hibernation. If they live in the lower elevations where it doesn't snow, then they don't need to hibernate in the wintertime. They do what we call torpor, which is slowing down their metabolism, but not true hibernation. In true hibernation, their heart is hardly beating. They're hardly ever breathing. Their immune system drops. I mean, their body temperature, they even drop their body temperature, bats do, if they're hibernating. So, oops, where are you going? All right. It's about 106-ish, unless it's flying, and then it's higher. Yeah, which is one of the reasons that scientists think bats fight off disease pretty well. I mean, there's certainly diseases they do die from, but they can fight off more things than we can. They have a much, much lower rate of cancer. They can fight off many of the coronaviruses that are out there. They can, I mean, they're just pretty hardy little buggers. Oh, what's that? It does, doesn't it? But what's she doing? No, she's, you were actually right. Say it again.
Looks like a little bit.
No. Yeah. She's looking for food, except she's looking with sound. So she's echolocating. So I'm going to turn on my bat detector here and we'll pick her up. So that's her. And she's like, I know what's coming. I know you know. I just don't know how to do it under this camera. So we're going to figure this out. And she's like, okay. Alright. Where'd she go? There she is. Alright, I'm gonna give her a drink of water. Can you take some water? Alright, then I'm gonna offer her a mealworm and we'll see if I can get this on the camera okay. You're looking for that mealworm, aren't you? You're like, I know it's coming because you always give me a mealworm about now. You want it? I'm off the camera. Sorry. Thanks for telling me. Come on. Except she's not. There she goes. Yum, 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 yum. Sometimes she licks her lips. Oh, there she goes. Yep.
Oh, somebody feel them that takes the belly.
Oh, well, if I keep handing them to her, it's kind of like chips. She'll eat maybe 30. But if she's just eating on her own, she eats about half that. She has a large tail membrane, no free tail. She is not a going. She is not a free-tailed bat. Big catcher's mitt. Yeah. And doesn't she have beautiful fur? Mhm. She also has a much broader wing. Much wider. So not as fast, but she can turn corners better. So wide wings are maneuverability. She can fly around the branches of the trees. And they actually, big brown bats can glean or pick insects off of plants. All right, last guy up. How is that? And the pallid is our state symbol, golden bat for the Golden State. It is found throughout California. So it's in forests, it's in the valley, it's in the desert. Look at those ears, right? Yeah, big ears. Yeah, big ears, big eyes. Yeah, so he uses his lower jaw to push forward on my hand. He doesn't like to be held as tight. I'm trying to keep him in the camera. Stop. All right. No, they want to see your face, not your back. There you go. With these really large ears, this species hears quite well. Well enough that they often don't bother with echolocation. They can echolocate, but they can also hear a grasshopper walking around in the plants. Pallid bats eat, for the most part, ground invertebrates. So grasshoppers, crickets, potato bugs. They'll eat big beetles, including cockroaches, and they can eat scorpion and centipede. Yeah, they're a feisty bat. They have big, broad wings. They can easily jump from the ground. For a bat, they have fairly strong hind legs also, to be able to do that with the large invertebrate in their mouth. So sometimes they just sit there on the ground and eat it, but a lot of times they'll carry it up someplace higher where they're a little bit safer.
So will they pick them up in flight off the ground, or do they land, grab it, and then take off?
Usually they land, leap on it, grab it, and take off. But they also sometimes will grab it in flight. But a lot of times the bug doesn't stay that still. So they'll kind of tent over the top of it, grab it with their teeth. They often rip off the parts they don't like. But a lot of times they do that wherever they're eating. So they have a thing for stucco. I get a lot of calls about pallid bats roosting over people's front doors and stucco front entryways, and there's all these bug parts on the porch. Yep, yep. But that's okay, because you're our state bat, right? Yeah. They are a species of concern in the state of California due to the loss of habitat. They are considered a grassland animal in much of our state. But again, they are forest and desert as well. And here is the tail. And yes, he is rather chunky. He likes to eat a lot. Now, pallid bats, I don't even have to teach them to eat from a bowl. What are you doing? Because they eat on the ground. So they will just crawl in the bowl and eat. Pretty easy for them. Yeah. No, I said I had 22 ambassador bats.
I know you can buy that one in the store.
Right. I throw it in my yard.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, if you compost, if I was good about composting, that would be lovely. The reality is the majority of my bat guano also has mealworm parts in it because these are not dainty animals eating mealworms out of a bowl. They pick them up, they throw them around. There's all these bug parts all over the bottom of the cage. So when I sweep up the cage, I sweep up the guano and I got the bug parts. So I just throw it out where my chickens are. And the chickens pick through, they eat the bug parts that are left behind, and then the guano eventually just goes in the soil. I do choose to move where I go. I learned that early on, because if you put too much guano in one place, it's high in nitrogen, it's a little hot unless it's composted first. And I just don't compost well. Because I'm out feeding bats. Yeah. Do you have other questions for me? Yes. It depends on where you live. So it's not the guano that's the issue, it's a fungus that can grow in the guano. And that fungus, histoplasmosis, grows in hot, humid, enclosed spaces. So if you're in the Mississippi Valley or you're, Texas, attic, cave, it can be an issue. But if you're here in California, when we're hot, we're not humid. So we don't, histoplasmosis doesn't grow well here.
You mentioned that some of the numbers were decreasing, and when people use bug sprays or pesticides, if they eat a bug, do they die from eating a contaminated bug?
There's not a whole lot of research done on the insecticide direct impact to bats other than reducing their food sources. There are some, and what it looks like isn't that it necessarily directly kills the bat, but it does affect their brain and their ability to track, and then they're less successful in hunting. And although the adult might survive, if you're not a good eater, you don't reproduce well. And so then you end up with less. And over time.
And it could really affect the offspring.
Sure could, yeah. Yeah, there's currently a PhD candidate that is working on that at UC Davis right now. So I'm curious to see when she finally finishes her dissertation, what comes of it. She's been studying for a while now. Yeah.
There were two separate evolutionary lines of bats, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So like a lot of things, animals break off. And they have renamed the groupings of the bats fairly recently. It used to be megabats and microbats. They started as micro and then, right? But then now they figured out that actually some of the microbats, which are the bug-eating bats, for the most part, actually are more closely related to the fruit bats than they are to some of the other. So they've changed it, and you could find it, but I can't think of their names. They both start with Y, and it doesn't help me.
But it's not that the genetic code would show two separate evolutions.
No. So they played with that for a while. The thought was the fruit bat ocular development of the fruit bat is fairly similar to the ocular development of primates. And so they were trying to figure out which was the convergent evolution, the eyes or the wings. And with DNA, they've decided bats are bats And it just happened that fruit bat eyes developed similar because of their dietary needs and such. Yeah. Yes.
Bats like the dog, but they like insects. Is it better for us to leave the light on to attract the insects?
No, there are some species of bat that will benefit from that, from attracting insects to light. Most species, it doesn't help. Most species veer away from the light. The other is light attracting insects affects insects reproduction negatively. So, yeah. So if we're attracting insects to light, we're reducing insects. Yeah, so that's one of the problems, right? Light is a problem. Insect populations are dropping rapidly, and there's a variety of things, and light is one of them. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't feel like there's very few situations where there may be some benefit. There is an experimentation going on in white nose syndrome country where they're trying to get bats to beef up fat. And so they're trying to draw insects in close to hibernation caves. We'll see what comes of it. But in general, in our neighborhoods and stuff, it's not particularly beneficial. Yeah.
If you really need a light on, overnight,
Mhm.
just because of neighborhood mischief.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the motion lights are better. Cause you know, if I was a bad guy and the light was always on, I could figure out where the shadows are. But if it's a motion light and it pops on, right?
And then the color of the
The
light.
color of the light, the blues don't seem to affect the animals in blue as much. And some of the reds also don't seem to affect the animals as much as the whites and the yellows,
And the ones that we use more.
which are the ones we use more often. So you'll see cities in other parts of the world, or including here, actually, just not here, but in some cities are aiming for a darker sky. And they will change the colors of the streetlights. To benefit wildlife, yeah.
Some of our national parks feature caves with bats. And because of that, people are, encouraged to go there.
Yeah, we're seeing that less. And what we're seeing at most of the national park kind of places, the things that are owned by the government, they're putting out shoe baths that you have to walk through to kill the fungus, just in case. They also do some interviewing, asking people to screen themselves. Have you ever worn that particular shirt when you were in a cave in this part of the country? Whether people are honest or not, I don't trust as much as making everybody walk through a bath.
Well, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jane, for suggesting Corky. Couple of things. Many of you we've never seen before.